What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Bamainsider YouTube channel. It's time for Recruiting with Andrew Bone. Bamainsider now part of On 3. We got you covered with everything going on Crimson Tide recruiting, and it is always good to see our buddy Andrew Bone. What's up, dude? How you been? What'd you think of the Iron Bowl?
Hey, it was good. I was actually it's like the first time all season. I think I was somewhat in the ballpark of my score prediction. So I felt a little bit better about that because all the other ones throughout the entire season were pretty bad. But I did think Alabama was going to cover the spread, and they barely got there,
Yeah.
but they did it. So it was a good game. Obviously, I think Auburn played pretty hard. What people don't really know about this is I actually have a connection to Robbie Ashford, Auburn's quarterback. His great grandfather actually worked with my family for a very long time, and he used to knock on, or he didn't knock. He would just come into our house on during the morning and yell in my bedroom, tell me get my butt out of bed. He was a guy that was a big part of my family for a long time. I actually spoke at his funeral, and it was the first time that I had met his granddaughter, who was Robbie's mother.
Wow.
And she was telling me, she said, her name's Melanie, excuse me, that Robbie, who was in the 7th grade at the time, was getting a lot of interest from at least from Hoover High School, that they really thought that he could be something special at Hoover High School one day. He was a multi-sport athlete, a great junior high football player. And, we saw how, kind of his career went, had a great career at Hoover High School, then ended up going to Oregon and then transferring back to Alabama. So, I was telling people kind of beforehand, Cadillac, is all you guys like to call him, Cadillac Williams. He grew up in Attala, Alabama, which is next to Gadsden, where I grew up. So, having the connection with Robbie and his great grandfather, and then Cadillac, I was like, wouldn't it be something if we go into this game this weekend and the guy that I was real close with growing up, as far as I wouldn't call him a father figure, probably more like a grandfather, great grandfather figure to me, that worked for my family. Wouldn't it be something if they ended up beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa? But, we kind of understood that was going to be a really tough challenge for Auburn to do so. But Alabama took care of business. A lot of recruits on campus, and couldn't have asked for a better atmosphere. We thought it was going to rain earlier in the week. It held off for the most part. I mean, it sprinkled a little bit at the game, nothing too crazy. But just from talking to all these different recruits who were in attendance, they just really enjoyed the overall atmosphere, environment, the light show, everything that came with it. So great weekend in Tuscaloosa to cap off the regular season. I guess we are now kind of waiting to see what's the rest of this recruiting cycle going to turn out to be, because there's some big decisions still coming up. We're still waiting to see kind of what happens with maybe even some guys who are committed to Alabama right now. Are they going to continue to take visits? It was funny. I talked to one Alabama commitment earlier today, Rock McElderry, 4-star offensive line commitment out of Anniston High School, flipped from Georgia to Alabama. I can't remember anymore. I think it was back during the summer of the spring. And I asked him, I said, are you taking your official visit to Alabama this weekend? Yes, sir. Are you going to visit anywhere else? And he said, if it doesn't have anything to do with Alabama, I'm not interested. And you know what? That's what you like to hear from your commits, guys that are very rock solid with their decisions. So, nice to hear that from a former Georgia commitment that is now solid with his commitment to the Crimson Tide. So, going to be an interesting few weeks here with these last few targets who are set to make decisions, including some big names who were in Tuscaloosa this past weekend.
Yeah, well, let's start there. And I know we had a big commitment yesterday, but let's just start with Tuscaloosa because we were just talking about the Iron Bowl. And you talk about some of the big commitments that were in Tuscaloosa this weekend. You got two guys that are 5-stars that are from Carver, Montgomery. They were in town, and then a surprise visit from 5-star rusher Keon Keeley. Do you think Alabama has a commanding lead for these guys?
Well, I think with Keon Keeley, I think that, getting him back on campus this past weekend was huge. It was something that we knew about, but we couldn't release the news until he landed in Birmingham. They wanted to keep things pretty quiet because this has been a really tight recruiting battle between Alabama, Ohio State, Florida, also still in it a little bit, but I do think it ultimately comes down between the Crimson Tide and the Buckeyes, and that's kind of been the situation for the last 2 months. His last visit prior to the Iron Bowl was to Alabama for his official visit during the Texas A&M weekend. Things went kind of quiet with Keon for a while. He didn't really say anything. He was kind of focused in on his senior season, which ended a couple weeks ago. Now he's kind of shifted back focus on the recruiting scene. Made that trip back to Tuscaloosa rather than going to the Ohio State-Michigan game, which, they were fighting to get him on campus last weekend as well. So getting back up to Tuscaloosa, I definitely think that bodes well for Alabama. And, I put in a prediction, I think back in August, an official prediction back in August. And I don't like to do that. I like to do it a little bit closer to when these kids do set up their commitment dates. And, so there's just so much that can change during that time span. It's been about 3 months since then, but I'm still feeling the same way. I still feel Alabama's got a great chance. I think they are in the driver's seat. Will he wait until December the 21st to make a decision during that first day of the early signing period? It's possible. It's also possible that he decides before then and could decide in the next few weeks. But I do think that Alabama is in a great spot with Keon heading into to these final weeks before signing day. So great to get him on campus. If you're Alabama, I'm sure they were really, really excited. A couple other guys that you mentioned, Russaw, Jane Smith, the top two in-state recruits in this 2023 class, both 5-stars. Always good to get those guys on campus, but they're not going to give away too much. I mean, they're going to have a great time. They're going to enjoy the game. They're going to go home, and they're going to let the recruiting process play out. They're not going to make a decision based on one game. Auburn's still, very much in the picture for them. Alabama's very high on their list. Georgia, Florida, these are kind of the top schools on their list. I think one significant thing about their weekend visit was Ohio State did try to get them for an official visit this past weekend to come up for the Michigan game, and both of them have Ohio State in their top 5. Now, is Ohio State really a contender? I don't think so. I think they're definitely going to stay in the SEC, stay a little bit closer to home. We'll kind of see how things play out with both of those guys, but Alabama had them on campus 3 times during the regular season. They're going to come back for their official visit on December the 9th, and then make that decision on December the 21st. I'm sure a lot of schools trying to work their magic, trying to get them in, for another visit before they make their final decision. But we'll see. I think the most important thing with them coming up will be the in-home visits. Auburn just hired a new coach, and Hugh Freeze. Who else is going to be hired on his coaching staff, and what kind of impact will those guys make in a short time span? So good to get them on campus. They had some other big names. They had a lot of commitments. I think it's always good to get your top commitments back in town. Richard Young, Justice Haynes, Dylan Lonergan, Hunter Osborne, Wilkin Formby, Ola Salinen, Edric Hill, Malik Benson. I mean, Yanze Pierre. I mean, it was just an absolutely loaded weekend. You had some top names, including Reuben Bain, Damari Brown, 2 uncommitted guys who are big targets for the Crimson Tide, who are also on campus. We've got interviews on Bamainsider.com with those guys, so I certainly encourage you to check that out. Arian Carter, 4-star linebacker from Tennessee, also made his 3rd trip to Alabama for the Iron Bowl. He'll be back next weekend, December the 9th, for his official visit. He's going to take an official to Tennessee this weekend, and then that was that's some of the main guys who were in Tuscaloosa, at least in the 2023 class. A lot of 2024, 2025, even a couple 2026 guys, including Jaheim Stewart, who's a 2026 defensive lineman from Louisiana, and Julian Lewis, probably the number one quarterback in that 2026 class from Carrollton High School over in Georgia. So, big weekend in T-Town for the Iron Bowl, and it brought out a lot of big names, and I think there was a lot of positive momentum with Alabama after the weekend.
Great hanging out with you guys on the Bamainsider YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as we talk Alabama recruiting like we do 8 o'clock every Tuesday here on the station, on the channel. Hit the bell so you know when we're live, and we appreciate you guys being here. And don't forget that all of this is geared towards Bamainsider.com. That's our homepage. It's changing the face of team coverage, and we want you to be a part of it. Right now, you get All Bones Recruiting with Joseph Hastings. Going to talk about those guys and something that they're working on together here in just a second. But like and subscribe to the station, and then go over there and join. $10 gets you an entire year. Bamainsider.com, message boards, all the latest info. $1 gets you 4 months if you just want to try it out. And Bone, you and Joseph have more intel on Keeley, plus interviews with a few other major targets, including a top 100 defensive lineman in Reuben Bain and 4-star cornerback Damari Brown, and all that right now is at BamaInsider.com. So we don't want to give it all away, but just a kind of a preview on that. Big news yesterday, Alabama got another huge commitment, a 4-star wide receiver, which all of a sudden has turned into a real area of need for Alabama. Jaren Hamilton, who was in Tuscaloosa this past weekend for an official visit, has said that he's coming to Alabama.
Yeah, this is a guy that we have been expecting for a little while. Jaren Hamilton had a great senior year, but it really kind of Alabama's pursuit of him really started during the summer. He went to Alabama's camp, ran a 4.40 in the 40, and we've talked about him a lot throughout the year about how he's a major target. And a lot of people didn't think that Alabama was still going after him after they picked up their third wide receiver commitment. Because you got to remember, Alabama signed 5 wide receivers in last year's recruiting class. Some of those guys hadn't played as much, but I think we're going to see some guys really step up next year. And, bringing in this wide receiver class that they have right now, 4 wide receiver commitments with Jaren Hamilton, Malik Benson, Cole Adams, and then Jalen Hill. I mean, back-to-back recruiting classes, 9 guys that, are, in my opinion, outstanding football players, and they got a chance to really be a great unit here in the next couple of years. So big win for Alabama on the recruiting trail with Jaren Hamilton. He ended up, not taking any other official visits. He really kind of shut down things. He took an unofficial visit to Alabama back in early October. It was also in Tuscaloosa in July for the cookout. And I think really since the cookout, I think it was all Alabama since then. And I think that's probably a reason why he didn't take any other official visits. He was pretty set on going to Alabama. And, there were some other schools that were trying to get him in for officials, Michigan, USC. Those were probably 2 of the big ones right there. But he was pretty set on Alabama and just decided that after the Iron Bowl that he was ready to make that commitment. So big win there for Alabama's tight ends coach, Joe Cox, who was the lead recruiter there, but also Holman Wiggins, who continues to bring in top receiver after top receiver every single year. So now you got to go in there and develop them and see how they pan out. But great wide receiver class. This class is finished at the position. I don't expect them to take another receiver, and I do expect them to hang on to all of their wide receiver commitments.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things that we're keeping an eye on. But is this wide receiver class complete? You talk about hanging on to the guys that they have. Is this it?
Yeah, 100%. There's no doubt. I don't think they're even talking to really anybody else. There have been some guys who visited throughout the season, but, these are the guys that they're really excited. But we went into this recruiting cycle thinking, they were probably only going to sign 3. That was probably I think that was more so the goal than the max. But once they got 3, they were pretty excited. And then, they weren't going to say no to Hamilton. This was a guy they really liked a lot. After they worked out with him in camp during the summer, and certainly wanted to take his commitment. We kept saying it, telling everyone, keep watch on Jaren Hamilton, keep watching Jaren Hamilton. We always felt like he was going to be one of those next ones to commit. We just weren't sure when he was going to do it. But once we kind of got into November, we knew his official visit was set for that weekend, for the Iron Bowl weekend. We said, all right, he's going to wait until after the Iron Bowl. And then, we were able to get something with him actually prior to the Iron Bowl. But he ended up, deciding he was going to announce on Sunday. Things got pushed back to Monday. I think he was waiting on some photos to get edited. And, once he got those photos, he was able to go ahead and release the news. So big win there for Alabama.
Hanging out with Andrew Bone on the Bamainsider YouTube channel. Great to have all you guys hanging out with us in the comments section, talking Alabama recruiting on a Tuesday night. Like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, bang that bell, and we appreciate you guys for being here. You can also check out Bamainsider.com. Some great stuff, including an interview with Justice Haynes, the 5-star running back commit to Alabama. There's been a lot of chatter, Bone, on the Georgia message boards about Haynes flipping his commitment. What do you take away from your conversation with him? Is this something that we need to worry about?
Yeah, I had a great conversation with Justice on Monday evening. I didn't even notice it. On the On3 consensus had moved him up to a 5-star. Averaging the other recruiting websites together to form the On3 consensus, as well as On3 rankings, he ends up moving up to a 5-star and the number 1 running back in the country, according to the consensus. So, reached out to him. He was definitely open to doing an interview. We talked about Georgia, talked about the Iron Bowl visit. Basically, kept saying some words that you kind of listen out for when guys who are committed talking. You don't hear it. You hear it sometimes. You don't hear it all the time. But when you hear a guy who is committed that goes and visits or starts talking about the school they're committed to, a lot of them will say, they did good. Alabama did well. I was looking at this at Alabama. He kept using the phrases "we" and "us." We did this, we did that. I can't wait till we get back to the Alabama standard. And, that's something that really kind of stood out in that conversation. So, he also said that in his opinion that he is locked in with his decision, but at the same time, he is going to allow Ohio State and Georgia to continue to recruit him. And he's going to, listen to them all the way until signing day. But he also, one thing that I also took away from the conversation, and I encourage everybody to go read the interview because it's really in depth. He's shared a lot of light on Alabama, on his football season. I mean, he had an unbelievable season where he averaged over 11 yards per carry for Buford High School, one of the toughest divisions in classifications in not only in the state of Georgia, but this is the entire country. And that is extremely impressive. And one thing that I did take away, though, was when I was asking him about Ohio State and Georgia, he said, anytime I ever talk to other coaches or I visit other schools, it makes me feel more confident in my commitment to Alabama. So I thought that was a pretty good quote right there, that if you're an Alabama fan or you're an Alabama coach, you really like hearing that, especially with somebody that has been taking visits and is talking to other schools. Now, is he going out and visiting, 5 different schools? No. Is he going out and visiting Georgia every other weekend? No. He went to Georgia's game against Oregon earlier in the season in Atlanta. Didn't even get a chance to talk. Went to Georgia's home game against Tennessee. And that was it. And, that was a game that's his father was became real famous in when he played at Georgia. And, it was just something that they always do. I don't think it was a situation where they went to flip to Georgia or to create some sort of false hope for them. I think they just wanted to go to the game, and he is going to, like I said, he's going to continue to talk to Georgia. Is there a chance that he potentially flips to Georgia? You can never say never, but my takeaway from the conversation with Justice is that he's solid with his commitment to Alabama, and we'll see what happens. But he loves the coaching staff, loves the other commitments. Really looking forward to enrolling in January. So we'll see what happens over the course of the next few weeks. My takeaway right now with Justice is he's about as solid as it gets for a guy that's still talking a little bit to other schools. He sounds pretty solid to me.
Sounds good. How about CJ Blocker? He's just received an Alabama commitment, a 4-star defensive back out of Texas.
Well, not a commitment. He's actually a kid that just received an offer from Alabama.
That's right. Sorry, Mo. Offer from Alabama. Right. Out of Texas.
Out of Texas. Decommitted from Utah last week. He started seeing a lot of offers come his way over the course of the last couple months. Great senior season. That happens a lot. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys. There was a kid that, rushed for 229 yards, had 303 yards of total offense in the NFL this past weekend. They got offered the day before National Signing Day, and that's Josh Jacobs. So it's okay to get offered as a senior. Everybody always thinks, oh, they must have missed on somebody, or, this is a plan B or a plan C or a plan D type guy. No, I mean, maybe sometimes those are, situations. I think now with the transfer portal, you don't really have to go to your, plan B, plan C type guys, because you can just go into the portal if you miss on, one of your, big targets. So this is definitely a guy that Alabama evaluated this season. They really liked him a lot. They wanted to get him on campus. He had his first opportunity to do that this past weekend. He had never visited Alabama before. They extended him an offer. He's a 6-foot tall, 170-pound cornerback. Runs a 10.4 in the 100 meters. He's got a couple official visits coming up this month. USC. He actually canceled TCU. He's going to go to Kentucky. He's got Kentucky next weekend. Then he's got USC. Still not sure if he's going to take an official visit in December to Alabama. But one key thing with CJ Blocker is he is going to wait until February to sign. Most of these guys all signing in December, but he's going to push it back. Going to sign in February. Now, he did say that he could decide to go ahead and make a commitment, but definitely will not sign until the late signing period. So if he doesn't make it to Tuscaloosa sometime next month, if he doesn't commit to Alabama sometime next month, I wouldn't lose hope just yet, because he says he's still going to take an official visit no matter what. And if Alabama can get a guy on campus, especially, let's say they do not sign, they don't sign, a Damari Brown, or they don't flip a Malik Muhammad, between the early, in the early signing period, or, get Desmond Ricks on board. They're certainly going to push even harder for CJ Blocker, potentially during that late signing period. And I'm sure that they are also, once again, going to be looking into the transfer portal, because there's going to be a lot of great players that are going to be entering the transfer portal at a lot of different positions, potentially positions of immediate need for Alabama. And they're certainly going to keep their eyes open and hope to get some good players. So
I could see that. No doubt.
They've had some success there in the past, so I'm sure they'll have more success this year. But CJ Blocker, definitely a new name to keep an eye on in these next couple months.
Well, let's shift outside of the Iron Bowl visitors. Alabama 5-star commitment Caleb Downs took an unofficial to Ohio State this past weekend. That surprised a lot of people. Is there something to worry about there? Or maybe looking at Michigan whoop Ohio State might have made him think, hey, I might as well just stay where I'm at, right?
I mean, you never know how these kids feel. I'm sure that if Ohio State had a big win over Michigan, won by 20-plus points, he might have a different feeling. I don't know what his feeling is right now, just because he's not talking to anyone. We did talk to Justice Haynes last night, and Justice told me, he said, he's very, very close with Caleb. And I asked him, I didn't ask him specifically about Caleb right away. But I asked him, I said, who are you planning on rooming with at Alabama? And he said, I'm rooming with Caleb in January. I said, okay, well, are you worried at all? He's like, I'm not worried one bit about Caleb. He knows where home is. Maybe he does, but I think in the end, he's probably still going to make whatever the best decision is for himself and his future. But this is a special football player, and Alabama really wants to hang on to him. I think they believe he's got a chance to make an early impact next season. He is an early enrollee, so getting him on campus early to go ahead and start working, I think they're going to have a really good chance to. Some of these guys are going to have a really good chance to see the field as true freshmen, and I think he's certainly capable of doing that. But we saw all these reports. If Caleb steps foot on Ohio State's campus, it's a done deal. He's going to Ohio State. That's not true at all. This is a guy who said since his commitment to Alabama, I mean, really ever since July, that he was going to take visits to Georgia and Ohio State this season because he still wanted to experience those game day atmospheres in those places at those schools that have shown him the most interest throughout the entire process. And so that was always kind of the plan. We knew earlier in the week that he was planning on going up to Ohio State for the weekend, even though we couldn't report it. He wanted things to be kept extremely quiet about the visit. He just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. He just wanted to go up there, watch a good game. Alabama Auburn, probably lost a little bit of its luster when they fired Brian Harsin, and Auburn. I don't even know what their record is, but it wasn't a top 5 showdown between two teams, and he got a chance to go up there and watch that game, and that's what he was always planning on doing. So, is Ohio State in it? They're in it. So is Georgia. I would probably lean a little bit more to Ohio State being a bigger threat to Alabama. But once again, I think Alabama is still in the lead. I think they keep him on board. These next few weeks will be pretty important for him with these in-home visits coming up. But I think Alabama, still feels pretty good about where they are with Caleb Downs, because it wasn't one of those situations where he was on the Alabama commitment list and all of a sudden he showed up in Columbus. He had a conversation with the Alabama coaching staff about the trip to Ohio State this weekend or this past weekend, and it was okay. I remember a few months ago when Ohio State fans tried to create some sort of discussion on social media that Alabama was preventing recruits from taking visits because Justice Haynes had decided not to visit Ohio State for the Wisconsin game, which was never a set plan. He discussed it with his family. They decided to stay home that weekend, and Twitter, man, social media will get you. And it created this big firestorm and trending hashtag like free Justice Haynes or some crap like that. But it was kind of funny talking to Justice's father about it, because they had a good laugh about that because they knew that was not true at all. So Caleb did visit Ohio State, so it's something to keep an eye on. But as of right now, I think he's going to end up sticking.
Hanging out with Andrew Bone on the Bamainsider YouTube channel. Great to see all of you guys in the comment section. Thank you so much for being here tonight and all the time on our shows. We've covered Alabama. We're going to continue to do that as the Crimson Tide move forward. Anytime Nick Saban talks, we'll have that. Anytime Alabama plays, we got the pregame and the postgame live. We've got so many really fun things on this station, and we appreciate you guys being a part of it. So give us a thumbs up for this show. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. Like and subscribe so that you'll be part of this giant audience, and hit the bell so you know when we're live. And don't forget right now that we're part of On 3, changing the face of team coverage. You guys can do it as well, and we're trying to recruit you. $1 for 4 months, Bamainsider.com, or $10 for an entire year. So take advantage of that as we move forward and get closer and closer to the early signing period. Big news yesterday in the state, and that's that Hugh Freeze, the former Ole Miss coach who was at Liberty, who's kind of gotten in some trouble in the past. That's why he was fired from Ole Miss. It certainly wasn't for wins and losses. Has been hired at Auburn. How does that impact the recruiting in Alabama and for Alabama with key Tide targets?
Yeah, I don't know yet. It's going to be kind of interesting because he does come with some baggage that was off the field. Now he is probably paid for that, but I think that that's something that's probably going to be used against him. In these living rooms when coaches are going in and sitting down with prospective student athletes, that's probably going to be a topic that's brought up. Maybe not. I know that there are some schools out there that do not negative recruit. They try to sell their program. That's something that Alabama's always done. As far as sitting down in living rooms, they never really bash other programs or talk bad about them. I don't know if that's still. Hopefully, that's still the case because you want to sell your program. You don't want to trash, somebody else's program or somebody else's reputation. Kid wants to go to your school, you sell your program to them, and that's that's the thing that Alabama's gotten a lot of credit for through the years. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of kids that don't know Hugh Freeze. Because he's been at Liberty. I mean, it's not like, these guys grew up, getting recruited by Hugh Freeze to go to Liberty because most of these kids are, top end guys. So, there's a relationship that needs to be, developed. And, I think the assistant coaches that he hires will be important. Obviously, we've seen one in, Cadillac Williams being hired. I thought that was a very, big hire for them. I think that was something that probably needed to definitely happen. And I think they can do well on the recruiting front, but there is going to be a lot of questions, especially with a lot of these families. Recruits may not care, but there may be moms who care. There may be grandmothers who care, about some of these past transgressions. So we'll see how it all kind of unfolds in the coming weeks. But just from talking to different recruits, there's not really anybody who had, really much to say. And we've talked to some guys who are, who have Alabama and Auburn as, in their top group, and, they're just trying to learn who he is. There was more, probably a bigger concern if Auburn were to hire Lane Kiffin, because Kiffin has a relationship with a lot of these top end recruits throughout the country. Been reaching out to him. He's obviously active on social media, and even though some of these kids may not have had Ole Miss in their top five, like a Quay Russaw or a James Smith, they knew Lane Kiffin. They had a somewhat of a relationship with him. He was recruiting them. He was trying to get them over to Ole Miss several times. They just never ended up going over there to visit. Hugh Freeze wasn't calling these kids to go to Liberty, so it has to be a quick developing relationship. But I think the most important factors for him will be who are going to be his assistant coaches, who are going to be the coordinators, and what kind of relationships are they going to have with these top end kids, especially over the next 3 weeks as they make decisions.
Yeah, let's close it up with this. Tell us what the next 3 weeks will be like on the recruiting trail for Alabama.
We'll be busy. I mean, there's going to be official visits that are going to happen starting this weekend. We're going to see mostly commitments. Bray Hubbard, Rock McElderry, Yanze Pierre, all coming back into Tuscaloosa. Jahil Hurley, Tyler Scott, his defensive back out of Pebblebrook High School in Georgia. He's also going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend for his official visit. Coach is going to hit the road for in-homes. That's going to start on Friday. They probably won't go too far with official visits coming in, but once we get into Sunday of next week, coaches are going to be hitting the road for the next 2 weeks, trying to visit as many kids as they possibly can, and try to win some big recruiting battles. But this is the time where you're going to start seeing Nick Saban taking photos at different high schools and in homes and trying to sell the Alabama program. So it's going to be really busy. There's a lot of kids that we're still tracking. I mean, they're currently sitting at 24 commits. I think that number could easily get to 30 by the early signing period. And there's just a lot going on. So definitely stay tuned to Bamainsider, because on the recruiting front, Joseph and I will continue to bring it every single day. We've got nuggets almost every single hour on Bamainsider.com, and we'll keep everyone posted. You don't just have to wait. You don't have to wait a week to get to get a little bit of scoop on here. You get all the scoop every single day on Bamainsider.com. Plus, Clint Lamb's doing a great job on the transfer portal front. There's a lot of news coming out on the transfer portal, whether it's guys leaving, potential guys that might be coming in, positions that Alabama may be looking to add. So I certainly encourage you to go check out all the content on Bama Insider, especially on the transfer portal and the recruiting front. But we'll have a ton of scoop over the next couple weeks on Bamainsider.com, and be sure it's not just the stories on the front page. There's a lot more on the message board. So click on the Talk of Champions message board to get all that real juicy scoop that we provide every single day.
Yeah, look, you guys can join right now. $10 for an entire year, Bamainsider.com, now that we're part of On3, or $1 for 4 months. And take Bone's advice, because I don't think you'll be disappointed. That does it for our show today. We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and thank you for being part of Recruiting with Andrew Bone again here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Special thanks to Chris Daughtry behind the scenes, and for the guy that puts it all together, Kyle Henderson. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for watching, guys, and Roll Tide.